Pat Welter here with Brian Murphy after a 20-3 UNC win over Charlotte, which was Bill Belichick's first college win, and what a humble beginning for it all. Brian, after getting crushed by TCU last week in maybe the biggest college football game in Chapel Hill history, they come here to Charlotte, the friendly confines of Jerry Richardson Stadium, normally seats like 15,000. They got it up to a record 19K to see history in the making. And it was funny listening to the press conference because it sounded like Belichick was pretty happy with their performance, and certainly a win is a win after what we saw in the opener. But I think if you want to, you could really nitpick this one as well because you beat an American Athletic Conference team by 17 points. Kind of where do you sit?
Yeah, I mean, it felt like this was one for the trivia books, not really for the record books. There was no giant celebration. Belichick given a couple of chances to talk about what this win means and your first college win, and just sort of said, oh, it's all about the players, all about the team. I think they were happy. They did a lot of things better than against TCU, but after the first drive, once again, quick scoring drive, 3 plays, touchdown, you're thinking, oh, man, they're going to put up 40, 42, really put it on Charlotte. And they didn't. The offense just stalled out once again. A late drive late in the first half really helped get to that lead and put them up 17-3. But in the second half, they scored 3 points. They still don't seem to know what they're doing at running back. They don't seem to know what they're doing at wide receiver. They're playing a ton of guys at those spots. It feels almost like preseason.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like some of it's like how much is it like game plan versus like an actual lack of talent, right? Because Belichick is not somebody that cares about the margins. College football, margins do matter. There are ranking systems. There is a playoff committee. This is not the NFL where your record truly gets in. So Belichick might need to take some notes on that, I would say. But I'm just trying to kind of scatter the difference there because, you know, they didn't turn the ball over. I would say they controlled possession, but then I was looking at the stats, pretty much equal on time of possession. I actually think Charlotte edged them by about a minute. If there's one stat that they dominated, they shut down the run of Charlotte. The defense completely contained them in the red zone. They had the one field goal. They missed another. I think there was an interception right at the end of the game. So in a way you could say the defense dominated, but I think probably the biggest red flag for me through 2 games is just like the line of scrimmages, right? They did not control them at all against TCU. And they did somewhat here tonight, but when you're playing Charlotte, you'd like to see a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that's the difference, right? It's not so much that the blowouts are going to help this team get to the college football playoff, because, quite frankly, Carolina's probably not going to the college football playoff. But what you like to see, and the reason that these games often have such differences in the score, is that the talent level is so much higher. And what you saw today just didn't feel like that. Carolina rushed for over 100 yards, but a lot of that was Gio Lopez just scrambling around, trying to make plays and get some key yards on the run. They never really established the run where they just pound you, and then maybe play action and go over the top. It just feels like maybe the offensive line is not capable of that. The defensive line, again, they got a sack or 2 at the end, but it felt like they weren't generating consistent pressure on Connor Harrell, the former UNC quarterback, and Grayson Loftus, the former Duke quarterback.
It all comes back around.
Yeah, a lot of formers here playing in this game, but it just doesn't feel like they're able to impose their will in a way that you would expect a team from the ACC to impose its will against a team from the American. And not, you know, there's some very good teams in the American, as we're seeing.
Sure.
But Charlotte's not one of those. They're not a top-tier American team. And so you'd think Carolina would be able to sort of establish their will, and they just, outside of that first drive, never really were able to do that.
This is not a finished product, as we know. Belichick's teams finish better than they start. And if he truly is here for the long haul, where he's bringing in the 17th ranked recruiting class next year, but part of you wonders, like, how long are we here for this? I think what we learned tonight, this is not a complete, absolute dumpster fire train wreck. They did not lose to Charlotte, and I think a lot of us were really just kind of lost after how bad the TCU loss was. That like anything seemed on the table in this game and going forward. But to your point about the American Athletic Conference, they don't look like a team that would beat ECU right now, who played NC State really well in the opener. And they certainly don't look like a team that is willing and able to compete in the ACC.
Right. I mean, look at South Florida. A team out of this league just went and beat Florida. They pounded Boise State.
Wow.
I mean,
I've been locked in out here. I didn't even know that.
yeah, South
Holy
Florida,
cow.
You know, from the American, South Florida looks like a playoff contending team. This Carolina team, and I'm not sure playoffs were a realistic option to start the season, but just when you see this team under Belichick, these are the kind of games you think they're going to have to win. Don't turn the ball over. Do all the right things. Make a couple big plays on defense. They got a little lucky too. Charlotte missed a very short field goal.
Yeah.
That would have made it, I think, 10-6.
Yeah.
At that point.
Tight.
And then Carolina went down the field, scored that touchdown right before the half, a big drive. But Charlotte also had a couple fourth downs deep in Carolina territory. They weren't able to convert. So, this is the kind of formula I think that Belichick's going to use. I thought about asking in the press conference, never got around to me. There were a lot of personnel in there asking lots of questions.
Sure.
But what do you think this team is going to look like is sort of my question for Belichick. Is this what you envisioned for this team? Kind of eat up the clock with a little bit of running game, let Gio make a couple first downs. Belichick's not a guy who has a system offense or necessarily a system defense. He kind of adapts week to week as to what the opponent presents. And so watching this team, I don't think we're going to get like that's what they're really going to look like, airing it out, doing this, doing that. I think it's just going to kind of be week to week, finding a way to kind of muck through it. And that might work against Charlotte. It'll probably work against Richmond, but you wonder when you get to Clemson or NC State with a big win today, even Duke, which didn't play that well today, but has been a very good team the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Is it going to be enough when you get to teams where the talent level is even, or maybe you're even at a talent detriment?
I was talking to a scout on the field before the game, and we were talking about this, trying to get an idea of what is the talent level of UNC. This particular scout was not at the TCU game. This was their first real chance to see UNC. I also asked this person, is Belichick really banning the New England Patriots? He wasn't sure. He hadn't been to Chapel Hill yet himself. But then Belichick just answered that question in the post-game press conference. Yes, they are banning the Patriots personnel. He said that I'm not welcome in their facility. They aren't welcome in ours. And I know a source had told you the same thing, but just funny to hear Belichick say that out loud. What was your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, I was amazed that he addressed the question. I thought he would just pass it off. But also just funny because, Robert Kraft just a couple weeks ago said, I want to build a statue of Bill Belichick next to the one of Tom Brady. And now he's saying, I'm not even welcome in their facility. Obviously, a lot of bad blood there. I guess what you hope if you're a Carolina player is that the Patriots, not being able to see you doesn't impact your draft status in any way. But, yeah, when you look at the talent, I'm interested in what that scout said. Thaddeus Dixon stands out as maybe the guy with the most pro potential. But when I talked to the scouts today, no other names really bubbled up as guys who they have to come see. Certainly not like last year with Amari Hampton or the year before with Drake May and Sam Howell. And just this team has put a lot of players in the pros during the Mac Brown era. Now, it didn't always translate into success on the field, although they did have some success on the field. But this team, at least right now with the 70 new players, doesn't seem to have that kind of pro potential that some of those Mac Brown teams had.
Talent evaluation was one of Belichick's biggest weaknesses at the end in New England, and it doesn't look like they hit home runs in the transfer portal so far. You talked about Thaddeus Dixon. I thought Simpson has really stood out on defense as well, but a lot of the guys contributing so far have been Mac Brown holdovers.
Right.
In Jordan Shipp, Davion Goss,
Caleb Hood.
And Culliver.
Right.
Now, Chris Culliver scores the first touchdown in the game. Great play. This is a kid in a limited sample size has made some huge plays. He had a kick return last season. But then what happens? He leaves the game with an injury. Belichick didn't have a lot of information on it, but seeing it at field level, it looked like pretty serious, at least the way he was walking off. I couldn't tell, maybe it was like a shoulder or a forearm type situation. And if you lose him, that's just another weapon that you're down. The key to me with this team offensively is the run game. You talked about what does Belichick want this team to look like. They clearly are committed to the run, even if it's not working, and they're trying to find a solution. How many running backs played in this game?
They
Five?
had 7 different ball carriers. Guys carry the ball. Damon June, a freshman, had some big runs, seemed to get a bulk of the work in the second half. But nobody, I think, even had 10 carries. So they really spread it around to all their guys. What's interesting about the talent is Mac Brown was known for recruiting. I mean, they had really good recruiting classes, even if, again, that didn't always translate. And those guys are all gone. Like when Belichick and Lombardi came in, kind of ran everybody off or everybody left of their own volition. And now you have his players. So it's like all those recruiting classes that Mac had put together, 25th, 16th, 11th, 34th, you know, these higher end recruiting classes, all those guys are gone. And this product is what Belichick and Lombardi put together.
Well, it is a win. A win is a win. And it's a covering of the spread. For those out there that marked that one of the biggest plunges of all the point spreads from what are they, wherever we were, 20 at the opening to 13.5 at the close. Any final thoughts, Brian?
I just think this team is still developing. I think they're still trying to figure out what they have at running back, what they have at wide receiver. They played a lot of guys on defense as well. It feels like this, I said it once before, kind of feels like training camp, feels like the preseason where they're still trying to figure out who the best players are for what they want to do and for what gives them the best chances to succeed.
Well, classic nobody believes in us. Belichick already tapping into it. He said the locker room was fired up after all the negativity from the media. Negativity that was probably warranted. We tried to parse it positive and negative, I think, after this one. Much more cooler heads, I think, in this video podcast than everyone was after the loss to TCU. We'll see how they look next week back at home versus Richmond. For Brian Murphy, I'm Pat Welter, signing off in Charlotte.